Everybody, we're going to do another video about business and talking about business and different stories. A couple different subjects. Like I said last time, we're going to try to do these more often than I have been. I'd like to do one of these every 2 or 3 weeks. I got a bunch of subjects now people have asked me about. I just haven't had time to do them. I apologize for that, but I actually have some local younger guys that really like these business talking ones. Like I said, something that happened to me might keep you from learning something the hard way. I hate to say that every video, but it's true. That's the biggest reason I'm doing these. I've learned a lot of things the hard way. I've also talked to other local business guys that tell me stories of like, wow, I wish I would have known this or known that. So that's what these videos are going to be about. That and just general business talk. I'm going to start this. I'm going to show you a quick sign. Just a little story I want to add. There's a local store near me, probably a couple miles, 2.5 miles from my house. I'd say 3 owners ago, maybe even 4 owners ago. It's a store that sells every 3, 4, 5 years, whatever it is, for whatever reason. But anyways, the owners years ago that had it, I did some work on their camp on Great East Lake. They stayed pretty friendly with me. I'd get a coffee every morning, breakfast sandwich, whatever. Back then my son was with me, so we spent quite a bit at that store in a week. So they asked me if I wanted to put a sign on a fence that's right on 153, which is the main road, state road out there. So I had this hanging on their fence probably for 3 or 4 years, and the town came up with a rule that they couldn't advertise other people's businesses at their business. I don't know what the whole deal, but they had to take it down. It pissed them off. So they hung it inside their store above one of the coolers. Stayed there for probably a couple years, and then the new people bought it. It still stayed up for about a year and a half after that. Then it disappeared. I thought it got thrown away. Well, this is, like I said, the 3rd or 4th owner. Got same thing. He knows me real well. I'm in there getting coffee or whatever a lot. I walk in the other day, he hands me this. I thought it was kind of cool. These used to be, I think I had like 6 of these done for yard signs, basically, when I was working someplace. And I just thought it was cool. I figured I'd mention it during this video. Brought back some memories. This was old enough so my son was working for me. So it's also a time when I really didn't know how to bid a job. So I was working too cheap probably. But so there's the start of the video. And the subjects we're gonna pick a couple subjects to talk about. One of them is, to do basically with business. Pretty much we're around the snow removal season's right around the corner, so people have asked me my thoughts on leasing equipment, because a lot of guys do short-term leases on snow removal equipment. Like a lot of guys will just rent a loader for 5 months or 6 months to do snow removal. Most of those short-term leases are big bucks. You're basically renting that machine. So it's not like you lease something for 3 years. They normally give you a decent payment on it. The ones you do those short-term for snow removal, it's normally a special thing that's done through the dealer you're getting it from. It's not a real lease company. It's something they're doing to get some. What they normally do is they take their loaders, articulated loaders or skid steers that are set there for a while, or they take them out of their rental fleet and they'll lease you one of those with a few hours on it. Most of the time it's a new machine. You do see a lot of loaders on big parking lots that they look new because they are. So that's the only lease I think is probably a good idea. You lease those short-term leases for a snow contract, and it's got to be a decent contract because you're paying big bucks for these leases most of the time. Only time I think it would work out is for snow removal. I don't think it's a good idea to lease equipment other than that. I always felt, I had it offered to me many a times. Way back in 2002, I bought my B21 tractor loader backhoe from a Kubota dealer. I went there wanting to buy the L48, which was that was their biggest tractor loader backhoe that Kubota sold back in 2002. Now I think it's an M62 or M63 they call it. But it was a decent sized backhoe. I couldn't afford the payment on that to get it on a 5-year loan. So the guy mentioned, he said, why don't you lease it for 24 or 36 months? And then like 60% of my payment on my lease would go down as a down payment if I chose to buy it at the end of the 36 months. And then you get a 5-year loan. And I always felt, and he was honest, this guy, I bought my original tractor, my first new Kubota I bought from East Elliott Garage, which is now bought out by MB. But East Elliott Garage, the guy that owned that was a farmer that did a lot of farming. Nothing against farming. I'm just saying he was a down-to-earth guy and honest. He'd say, hey, I can lease this to you. My credit was good enough to lease that. And then he said, once you lease it for 3 years, Kubota I'll guarantee they're going to give you the 5-year loan on it. What I ended up deciding to do was to buy the B21, which is $32,600. And that other one was, I think, in the 40s. And I got the loan on the one for 32 grand with no issues. And it was actually a pretty good deal. I think it was like 1.9% interest, which at the time was pretty good. So I ended up buying it, and he was honest with me. He was the owner salesman. It was just him and his wife. I think they had one mechanic. He was the salesman. And he said that, he goes, a lease pretty much puts you in a piece of equipment you can't afford in reality. And I really took that to heart when he said that. I also had an accountant right from the beginning. I had an accountant that stayed with me right up until he passed away in business a couple years ago. And he told me the same thing. He goes, leasing equipment ain't a smart thing to do. Unless it's short term. He agreed. He had a lot of other accounts that were way bigger companies than I will ever be. And he said, most guys buy them loaders or lease them for 3 years, regret it. And you also have issues if you don't have a bad winter and it ain't making you money. Most of the time when you see one in a big parking lot, it's like my contracts. The only way I'll do a snow removal contract is if it's so much a month for 5 months. That's how I do all my snow removal. I even do my driveways that way now. Starting this year, there's no more per storm. I only kept a handful of driveways that are very local to me, and it's on the camp roads that I plow. And it's the next day. I don't do any same day plowing. Like, these are camp situations where they have to be open. But even those, I get paid in the fall. When they leave, I tell them how much it's going to be for snow removal. They give me a check. I plow it for the winter, but it's normally the following day after a storm. I have all I want on my plate during a normal snowstorm without doing driveways. But a couple of these people I've known for, I literally only kept 4 driveways this year on top of the roads. I keep 3.5 miles of camp road, and I do those, I think it's 4 driveways now. So, but we got talking about, basically everybody's talking about renting equipment. They're like, what's your thoughts on this? So it's either online, some people call my business line. A couple local guys were saying, hey, have you ever leased equipment? What do you think about it? And I told them, I always felt it was the truth of what my accountant said it, and this guy was the salesman owner of that deal, and now it's MB in Elliott. It's not East Elliott anymore. It's a way of putting you in a piece of equipment you probably really can't afford, is how I look at it. And most of the time, your leases, another thing I'll say with any lease, on your automotive leases and everything, if you look at the fine print, I don't know how many times over the years I've heard stories of someone leasing a vehicle and they went over on the mileage and it's like cost them like 4 or 5 grand. I've leased one truck in my life and it was a bad experience because I'm like, yeah, I think I can get away with that mileage. And I ended up going over on the mileage, and I can't remember what it was. I want to say it was like 20 cents a mile, which now, from what I understand, now you can pay like 45 to 50 something cents a mile for every mile you go over. So that can add up quick. So again, make sure you read your leases. There's also a lot of people that lease equipment thinking that big chunk of money is going down as like a down payment, so in 3 years you can buy it. You find out that buying at the end of your lease isn't the deal that you thought it was in your head. So you got to read. Most of them are pretty shystery deals if you really read them. I came close. I'm not going to say the brand, but one of the big, I'm going to say the big 3 or 4 companies I was thinking about leasing a skid steer from and a small mini excavator. And I went there to buy them. I was going to buy one because when I first started this business, I thought a skid steer would be a good idea. I don't feel that way anymore. But back then, I'm like, I want a brand new skid steer. So I went. I didn't have the credit because I had just started my business. I think I was only in business, I want to say 3 years, 4 years. They said my credit wasn't good enough to buy them, but they would lease both pieces to me. And a lot of guys would have just jumped on it. It was on a Friday afternoon. One of my brothers was with me. And he's thinking, I think that's a pretty good deal. You probably should just do it. And I'm like, no, I want to think about it for 3 days, 3 days. So I said, I'll be back Monday, Tuesday, whatever it was. I went back Tuesday. as I thought about it all weekend and read the fine print, I was only getting, the guy was making it sound like, oh, everything you pay for 3 years, it looks like you put down on it and then you buy it. Then you get home and read the fine print. And he was mad that I made him print stuff out so I could take it home. I found out only probably 40% of what I was paying was going to be called the down payment. It was also, they used another term, but it's what I call a balloon payment. There was also another chunk of money I had to put down in 3 years to get to payment that he was saying, oh, once you get done with the 3-year lease, you can buy it for this much money. Yeah, I can buy it after giving another $6,300 on each piece. One was a mini excavator, one was a skid steer. So I had to come up with $12,600 in 3 years to get the loan payment that the payment that he was saying I was going to get per month for 5 years on each one of them. So again, because I read the fine print, he hated it. He hated when I went back and knew what I was talking about. I had my oldest brother with me, which was pretty smart money-wise, probably more so than me at the time. I ran it by my accountant, which I see this guy all the time. So I said, hey, and he pretty much told me, he said, all he ever was an accountant all his life. I think he was like second generation, so he knew. But he said, very seldom a lease works out, and make sure you read the fine print, and I did. So a lease never worked out for me. I'm not saying there ain't deals out there. Sometimes that's your only way of getting into a commercial piece of equipment. Normally the lease payment is like, I'm going to say 70-80% of what your normal payment would be if you were buying it in a 5 or 6 year note. They sweeten the deal to get you into it, basically. But again, for me, I always felt it was a way of putting you into a piece of equipment you really couldn't afford. So my experience with it, I'm going to say in this video, was bad. Most of the local guys I've asked about it, since other people have asked me, it's all bad experiences with leasing equipment. You're better off buying it or buying used. Buy what you can afford is how I put it. I didn't buy a lot of used equipment. I'm not saying I never did, because I did. But I always tried making enough money, saving enough to put down a chunk, and I like my new equipment when you get it. You buy a new piece, like you buy a new Kubota, you're going to run it, you do whatever you want with that thing for 5 years, and it's probably going to treat you good. Then I get rid of my equipment based on hours, and my hours are a lot less than what a lot of guys are. But to me, when a machine gets 1,300 to 1,700 hours on it, I'm normally, if I can roll out of that and not get hurt real bad money-wise, it's going. The last few pieces I've gotten rid of, I had people that asked me, they confronted me and said, hey, because they know that I keep my equipment up. The last couple pieces I got rid of, people came to me and said, hey, I'll give you this much for it. The R30 loader I got rid of, I sold that for $400. I owned it. I think I owned that for like 5 years and sold it for $400 more than I paid for it. And all I did to that, the whole time I owned it, I replaced a couple hoses that were pricey because of where they were on the machine. I did do some snow removal with it. And the cold weather is when you're going to break a line. Normally, it's just harsh on them when the fluids stick. But I started up a couple cold days and didn't give it a chance to warm up and took right off. And I broke a couple fittings that were just in a pain in the butt area. Even back then, I want to say it was like a $280 hydraulic line. And I broke one season, and on the right side of the pump and the left side of the pump, I broke the following season. Other than that, I never put money in that. Had the same tires, oil changes, air filters, stuff like that, hydraulic oil filters, normal maintenance. Those two hoses were the only expense I put in that. So I made out good on that deal, getting rid of it. And one of my other pieces, I just happened to buy it before a $4,000 price increase happened. So when I was ready to get rid of it, I didn't lose any money. I didn't make money. I paid for using it for the 2 years I had it, but I still did well on it, I felt, when I got rid of it. So I don't think the leases are the best thing. My experience, if people are honest with you when they talk to you about it, leases aren't a good thing. So you've got to do it. Like I'm talking my size company too. If you're a company that does foundation work every day, or like major parking lots, like putting parking lots together and major commercial construction, the only way you can get into those big excavators is probably leasing them. What I'm saying in this video is like companies my size, or even like 2 or 3 guys. Mostly landscape, not so much construction, but my area, there's a lot of landscape companies and I'm almost considered landscape construction, not landscaping. I do a lot of the dirt work end of it, more so that I do very little mowing now. But I just thought I'd touch base, and I'm just going to be honest with you. My thought, I wouldn't lease. All the times it's been offered to me, which I'm going to say probably 5 or 6 times over the 25 years of business, it never seemed like it was a good deal once you read the fine print. So just all I'd have to say to somebody looking into it, read the fine print. So that's the first subject. The second subject we got on, and it's just a conversation, a lot of other guys like me that watch YouTube, they asked me my thoughts on the success stories of these younger guys that start a business, and they're on YouTube. They're a pretty big YouTube channel. They got 5 fairly new trucks, probably all with payments on them. They're sitting in a commercial building that's probably $250,000 plus. And they're like, do you think that's a true success story? I said, I think it's a success story. I just don't think you're getting the whole truth. And they're like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, well, how do you feel? And they're like, I just wonder how a kid 20-something years old, some of these kids I started when I was 17, now I'm 19 or 20, 21. There's a couple guys on there that are like 21. And the reality is, there's just no way they did it on their own. You do not have the credit line to have that type of machinery around you. I don't care how good you do in business. When you're 21 years of age, you just don't have the credit on paper to where someone's going to give you a $250,000 loan on putting a steel building up on a piece of land. Most of these buildings it's probably not even counting the land. You're probably talking $250,000 to $375 just to put steel building up. These guys are standing in telling you this story, how, this is how I did it. I don't know why they don't tell the truth. My attitude is someone helped them get there. I'm honest, when I started, how I bought my first new machine in 2002, I bought that brand new B21 little tractor, little backhoe. My oldest brother had a rental property that he needed a bunch of stuff done. They were getting ready to put it to town sewer, and his insurance company, he had to get rid of all the septic systems because it was a 4-unit, and there was 2 pretty good sized leach fields and septic systems on it. We had to prove the tanks got collapsed, and we had to re-landscape around the house once we collapsed everything. Redo the driveway. We literally had to redo the way the driveways were done and everything so that the town could come in with the city sewer. So because of that, my brother's like, hey, how much do you think this is going to cost? And I gave him a price. I want to say back then it was like $7,000. And I'll be honest with you, he gave me the $7,000 up front. I put it down on that machine. I think I came up with like another 50. I remember pretty well because that was a big deal for me buying that machine. I came up with another $5,000 or $6,000 to put with it. Ended up borrowing, I think, the money for 36 months. I had the machine paid for in 24 months. I was always proud of that. I worked it, and I'm not afraid to work. That machine, I still feel that's probably the best machine I've owned out of everything I've owned so far that made me money or got me where I'm at, I guess is what you'd say. I also had my accountant was a down-to-earth guy. My accountant was an accountant for a lot of other businesses, way bigger than me. And he always said, he was honest with me about leasing, didn't think it was a good idea. Always told me don't ever buy. I bought my first excavator was a KX71, then I bought the KX040. That's the biggest machine I'll ever own. If I need something bigger, I'm just going to call MB Tractor and say, hey, I want to rent one for the month and get it that way. He's the one that pushed that on me. So I had people that surrounded me that I want to say, he was a nice guy. I did a lot of work for him too. And because of that, we had a very good rapport with each other. I'm going to use the term, he protected me in business a lot. He kept me from making a lot of stupid mistakes. He'd tell me not to do stuff sometimes, and I'd do like any young guy would do, and I would not listen to him. And I'd say 99% of the time I regretted not listening to him. So overall, I listened to him pretty well. So my success story is because I surrounded myself with some pretty good people, and I had people that give a crap. They tried keeping me from stepping in it, basically. So again, I think some of those stories are true. There are some on there, like the 17-year-old kid that will admit, hey, my parents helped me buy my first push mower, lived in a neighborhood where he could go around and mow 20 lawns. Then when he got his license when he was 16, they helped him buy a truck. But again, he's being honest. He's like, my father helped me get into a $6,000 truck. There's probably 150 of those stories on there. And them are more feasible for me to believe than the guy that's 21 to 25 years old that's telling you how successful he is standing in front of 6 new Bobcat excavators and skid steers. You know, there's 5 pickups behind him that are $90,000 a piece. And most of the stories these guys are questioning me about, when I go on and look at them on YouTube, these guys are driving like Lariat F350s or Denali GMC trucks. That's their plow truck. I'm like, come on. There's just, someone helped them get there at age 25. And if you don't believe what I'm saying, quit your job tomorrow and let's say start a landscape business. 6 months in, a year in, go try to buy that $90,000 diesel pickup or a skid steer or an excavator. Let me know how that goes. That's how easy you can prove those stories are kind of And I don't understand it, because it's still a success story. That guy's still a go-getter, and I'll give him that. But just be honest. Someone helped you get there. Tell the whole story, because I think you'll find that some of these guys got a pretty good following, because there's other young kids that are like, I can do that. And I don't like that neither, because you're giving that kid false impression. The reality is, this ain't an easy gig to get started. And I don't think it was just my experience. I think that's just, you do not have the credit when you're 17 to 21, 25 years old to go drop $700,000, $800,000 on equipment and trucks and buildings. So be honest, I guess. So my thought on that is, most of those stories are probably crap. They did it to get YouTube famous. I like the guy that's honest and says, hey, I got an uncle that was in construction, helped me get into it, started giving me the stuff he didn't want to do. I love watching those guys. I have quite a few people. I don't subscribe to everybody, because I just don't want my phone, it's a business phone. I don't want my phone, going off every 5 seconds saying someone's put a new video. So I'm careful who I subscribe to, and that's bad to say, because it's hard to get subscribers, even for me. Right now, I think I'm in 540 something subscribers. I can't believe how slow this goes. I really thought, oh, this is easy. It ain't. This YouTube thing. Some of the guys I watch, like a guy called Dirt Monkey, I watch him. He's on there. It took him 5 to 7 years before he started getting popular. And I think right now, he said he's been doing this video thing for like 15 years. And I think he finally got 1 million subscribers this year. That's awesome. I like him. Some of his stories, I think I kind of am. Most of it's pretty realistic. I think he's doing what he's got to do now to keep his YouTube channel going. I would like to get mine going enough to where it's making me money. I'm not going to lie, but I don't care if I ever see 1 million subscribers. It'd be cool if it does. It does. I really am doing these videos to try to help people out, not learn things the hard way. Show what I do to keep my equipment up. That's why I said I'm a landscape company, but I'm going to do these business talk videos. You'll see me restoring something sometimes. Old lawnmower, I restored a truck in one video. That's just who I am. That's the true me. I've been pretty mechanically inclined since I was probably 12 years old. My dad was a good mechanic. My oldest brother was a good mechanic. I did go to a little bit. I've gone to school for stuff. It's to do with mechanical and auto body. I want to say 19, 20, 21 years old, I was working at dealerships. I worked at one dealership, hated it. I didn't like the hours. I was doing like 73 hours a week. I hated it. But every garage I've worked at in my younger days, it was always 50. It was fun. Wicked good learning experience. And most of the time, like when I was at the dealership, they'd say, hey, you want to go to school for this? And they'd pay you to go to school. So yeah, I'll do that. So I got in the auto. I originally, when I was 15, for whatever reason, I was good at painting. I could paint a car and it looked pretty decent. I was decent at doing body work. So I started working at a body shop when I was like 16 years old. When that fell apart, basically the economy went to crap, and then I ended up finding another job. And so I went from garage to garage doing whatever I had to do to make a buck. I guess that's another thing I can say about myself too. I've always known how to make a buck, and I'm not afraid. I'll do whatever it takes to support my family. I'll shovel shit against the tide I guess that's the best way to put it. I don't really want to do lawn care anymore, but if next season that's all that's around, I'm probably going to do lawn care again. It's like, I'll never be that guy that's like too, broad-shouldered and proud. I'm never going to do that again. I don't believe I'll have to, but I'm not ashamed to say I will. So, like I said, those videos, you can believe what you want. And if you got any questions, like I said, just throw me a comment, either on my Facebook or on YouTube. YouTube would probably be the best. I check that way more often. I got a lot of other subjects to talk about. I just haven't had time to do these videos. I've been busy this year, but a lot of small jobs, so I've been hopping. I've moved my equipment around more this year than I have probably in 5. It's just, I was blessed to have that work. It was just a lot of small jobs, so I was moving around. I don't like that. I'm glad I had that work, don't get me wrong. But I'm hoping, it's looking like, I won't lie to you, looking at my schedule, what's going on right now, it looks like next year is going to be a better year for me. I've already got one pretty good job on the books. I did a job this year and she wants me to extend it next year. Pretty confident that it's not a written contract. I have another one that is a written contract, so I don't believe that will get, the guy will back out of it. I'm normally booked out 6 months to a year ahead because it's just me and my daughter works for me part-time. I got a son-in-law that helps me out once in a while if I get really behind. But if you got any other things you want to discuss or talk about business, don't be afraid to say so. Like I said, leave me a comment, say, hey, give me your thoughts on this. And I'll also, it ain't just my opinion. The opinions I just gave you are something I've got from probably, I'm going to say 15 different construction companies I deal with all the time. Before I do these videos, I said, hey, what's your thought on this? And normally we all pretty much concur on what our stories are pretty much the same story, which might keep someone that's watching these videos from making the same mistake we've made. So this one was about leasing and how real these YouTube videos. I think some of them are just crap. I really do. Some of these guys are really successful YouTube guys, but in real life business, pretty much if their YouTube channel goes bad, their business ain't gonna support them. They do what they got to do to keep their YouTube channel going. I don't know what you want to call it. They dance and sing every week. It's, people. There's a lot of lawn care guys on there that I just. By watching them, I can tell you right now, whatever reason they got YouTube famous, but business-wise, they don't seem real swift. That's what I'll say, I guess. But again, if you like the content that I have on these business videos, I got quite a few handful of people that like me talking about business and also doing the showing my equipment and what I think. Basically giving a review on equipment. So I'm going to start doing more reviews on equipment and tools I buy. I find the reviews do real well. Business Talk ones do pretty well. A lot of times it's funny, like the last business one I did, the actual views online wasn't real impressive, but the people that got a hold of me through different ways, through Facebook and social media was pretty impressive. And I have no problem with that. If someone calls me, like I said, I don't know if I'll ever be YouTube famous. I'm not right now. I've got my followers. I'm glad. I'm happy with the way it's going. But I mean, people are surprised when I answer my line and we'll talk to them about, hey, I'm getting ready to buy something. Most of the time it's Kubota equipment. Hey, what's your thought? I'm getting ready to buy this. I know you got one. Do you really like it, or was that just a bullcrap review? And I'm like, no. If I buy something and it's junk, you're gonna know it. That's all. Again, we're gonna end this video, and I'm gonna say thanks for watching, and please subscribe if you like my content.